Um, Today, it's all about working primarily in your breakout groups. And as we've, you all have done this before now in ACC 601 and 603. These groups are really an opportunity to get peer feedback. You can get all the help you want from your professional colleagues or even from your faculty members in terms of picking content, making decisions, a lot of that kind of technical pieces. But when it comes to empathy, nothing like your peers, because they're struggling with the exact same questions. So hopefully you all have had a chance. I know at least I saw several people get their drafts posted. Thank you very much to everyone who can do that. As Rosie said, we're not going to take off points if you don't have a draft ready to share, but it will probably in the long run impact the quality of feedback you can get both from the course faculty and from your peers. So if you didn't get around to doing it on this assignment, don't worry. We've got at least one more assignment, so you can do it for that one. So what we'll do today is, and as you all noticed, Daniel is on the road this morning. He will be hopefully joining us around 9:30. So when we come back together as a big group, Daniel will be here. At least we hope. But right now we're gonna go, or shortly we're gonna go into breakout rooms, and once again, take time to go around as a group. Utilize that screen share function. Share your draft. If you didn't have a chance to post it ahead of time, share it this morning just as a screen share. And tell your peers what, don't use this as a chance just for cheerleading. That's always great, but if I were working on this assignment, I would put forward my draft and I'd say, here are the things I'm struggling with or things I'm unsure about. What do you think? How did you all overcome X, Y, or Z problem in terms of taking the reality that is your community and fitting it into this assignment, so that you're sharing ideas. We will come back though as a large group at probably about 9:45, maybe about 9:40, and to meet as a group. But specifically, we want each group to have distilled at least one key question that you all came up with. So maybe it's just a question that was really bothering one student and none of you felt like answer for it. Said, wow, that's a good question. It's a good question, but I don't have an answer for it. That could be how you pick that question. Come up as a reoccurring theme, right? Like you all keep having the same question about step 3 or whatever it is. But this is your opportunity to, pose those to the faculty. And if you can honestly say this part of the assignment doesn't make sense, explain it. But we are here. And so whether it's a technical question about the artifact, that would be fine. You have Rosie here, who's the master of artifacts. If it's a process question about getting your community to do something, we'll have Daniel here. I'm obviously here in terms of trying to help you translate what's happening in your community into an educational artifact. So we want to help. And so this is all about, and so I like to approach these classes specifically as bring as much energy to the rest of the day as possible, ask as many questions, use today's session for yourself. That's my advice to all of you. So before we go into breakout rooms, Rosie, are there any technical question points you want to address, or are there any broad technical questions people want to ask ahead of time? Just the reminder I will put out is, the lab is due this Sunday, correct, Rosie?
Yes.
So any other points I've missed there about the submission or any IT or course announcements?
Not so much. I mean, so I will just note that some of you decided to use Mahara last time for lab number 1 because you're comfortable with that platform. I know that it's been undergoing some updates recently, so it might be a little bit tricky, and I apologize if you've been dealing with that. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help, any questions, and I can be in touch with our IT folks. But, also keep in mind, you by no means need to use Mahara. So if that is getting in the way of bringing it all together, just use something, some other platform, could be anything. And then I just want to make one other point of clarification. So there's a little bit of confusion about this last time with lab number 1. We encourage you to share a draft of your artifacts on the course forum. Number 1, to give a reference point for everyone else, so that you could see how you're tackling the assignment and how your peers have been tackling the assignment. You're welcome to add feedback there. It's not being, assessed in any way, but if you just want to add some comments on what your classmates are doing, that's great. Even better if they're in your breakout group, but it's also a chance to kind of see beyond, the people you've mostly been meeting with. But I will, unless you specifically reach out to me, I can't guarantee that I'm going to review every single person's lab assignment and give feedback before the due date. So, please just email me, send me a message here, and then I'll make sure to make time for it. But otherwise, I'll just do what I can in terms of checking out everyone's work.
Great. Well, I think in that case, we will go into breakout rooms here. And just a reminder, there's no specific question to discuss today, aside from sharing your drafts, get one another's help. But when you come back, the assignment is that you all need to come up with a question for us. So it doesn't need to be, the world's most complicated or sophisticated one, just as long as it's something that would be useful, that your breakout room decides would be useful for clarification before the Sunday due date.
Absolutely.
All right. And Rosie and I will be around the breakout rooms as well, to listen in and also hopefully answer clarifying questions if they come up.
Absolutely. Okay. You should be getting your invitation to join your breakout room now.
Great, super.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So we've got a little less than 15 minutes left together today, and we enjoyed the conversations you were having, and now we want you to ask us your biggest questions moving forward. What is the sticking points or confusion points?
So who wants to go first? Irfani, does your group want to go first? Great.
Yeah, I have a question. Is it necessary for us to describe the reason why we choose this set from those set we described in community lab or not? We decided and just trying to go in scenario planning, for example, or we need to go back and describe and say about the tree seeds in previous community lab, and after that come to the one that is perfect for us or very related to our work, and go ahead.
Great question, Irfani, and thank you. It's also a very good one to kick off our questions because it really relates to step 1 of the assignment. So to answer your question, you are picking off where the last lab left off. So you don't need to talk about the 3 seeds, but you do need to talk a little bit about the seed you selected. So, but it doesn't need to, you don't necessarily need to repeat it. You could even kind of pull some of the information or analysis you did in your first assignment, maybe build on it a little bit. But as the instructions say, we want you to make sure to answer the following in terms of presenting that seed. Make sure that when we look at what you present, it's clear about how it aligns with your current work. And so in some cases that might be very easy. I work in the health field and this is a health project, but in some cases you might need to articulate it more. In other cases, it may be very, very evident. You can show yourself a picture of yourself, doing surgery or something. And then but also make sure that you're basing it. The other things that we ask you to document in presenting that seed is that there's evidence for it to scale up, kind of what was the conclusion you came to in your analysis in the previous assignment about it. And then also any that you have engagement or excitement from your partners. So in presenting that seed, we just want you to make sure you're documenting that it aligns with your work. You have evidence and you have energy around it. But you don't need, that should be pretty natural based on the analysis you did in the previous assignment.
And in terms of how this will be graded, you're just going to get the credit for this step if that's there. We're not going to be grading how well you made that argument that this is the best seed for you necessarily. You just check it off, great. We're really more interested in what you do for steps 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. So assuming you did a good job on your first assignment, you should really just be able to pick the seed and start from there. If you got less than perfect, if you didn't do very well on the first assignment, you may want to slow down and elaborate there in step 1 a little bit based on the feedback you got from us on the first assignment. Well, great. Thank you, Rafani. That was a really good question. How about, does another group want to go?
Meher raised his hand.
Yes, maybe for me, like a question that I didn't have the chance to share with our team because it was like we were like 5 people and we didn't have enough time to share. But for me, for example, if I have like one of the strategies I tried out and it didn't work, shall I mention in the lab that I say that I have this strategy and the second and the third, but the first one didn't work? For that, I'm trying to make those 2 new strategies.
Absolutely. Don't forget that step 4 of this assignment asks you to talk about the 5 criteria. And one of our criterion is iteration. Are you learning from your mistakes? Are you building, I like to think of, when something doesn't work, it just means try again, right? So that's exactly, especially if you are presenting 2 strategies that you think will work. You could, in theory, present 2 strategies, one isn't going to work, but we'd ask you to support it with a lot of evidence and explain what it meant. It's kind of a rabbit hole of a way to use the assignment. But I think better, Meher, is if you tried something, it didn't work, and it gave you evidence for why these other 2 solutions might work, that's a perfect use of this assignment in terms of taking the assignment and slowing down and seeing what may work. So yes. All right. Can we hear from another group?
Yes, so our main question in our group was about step 3, which you kind of already answered in our subgroup, but basically our question was, for step 3, when doing those different scenarios, did you need to focus on different processes as well, or could you use the same process for both scenarios?
Well, thank you, Kristen, for asking the question again, because I think it's a really important, very important question for everyone to cover. And based on the breakout rooms, I think everybody talked about that some. So, yeah, in this particular case, and Daniel will talk about scenario planning a little bit here. I'll hand it over to him to talk about scenario planning as a process a little more broadly. But let me specifically talk about the assignment instructions there in Lab 3. What we're asking you to do is hypothesize about what your growth is going to look like. Right? So assuming you do this plan and you have a strategy, what is the personal theory of change that you're employing for why this may work? And theories of change may be something as simple as, okay, well, if you have unhealthy people, giving medical services will lead to healthier people, or providing education to children will make them happier as well as smarter. Whatever that might be, is you have some reason, you believe it, your community believes it, that doing a specific intervention will have positive impact. In fact, you should have evidence based on your last assignment that you will get positive impact. But where that impact will go once it's started. And so you can employ several different approaches here. One is you can use essentially the same strategy and say, well, there are several different ways this same strategy could work. Another one is to use this as an opportunity to really explore different ways that this might unfold. So one is kind of thinking about, linear growth, and the other is saying, well, in fact, for instance, if you think about the model of education, that one way to expand the impact of education is to get more students. Another way to expand the impact of education is to diversify what the students are learning. So making it more fun, doing a better job with it, making it more experiential. If you were just teaching them math and math and writing, suddenly to start to teach them other topics like art, that was kind of much more the scaling up through the enhancement process. And there isn't a right answer here. It's just asking everyone to, you can pick which one you want to use for this assignment based on your analysis. So this does go back to step 1 and saying, what evidence do you have that this will work? Follow the evidence. Daniel, do you want to build on that?
Yeah, we don't have much time, folks. But I want to tell you sort of a little funny story, which I think will help you answer this. But before I tell you the funny story, I want to go back. Remember 2 lessons ago, I gave you the normal curve in statistics. And you don't really know where you are in that normal curve. You may be in the center, you may be in the outliers. And here's the way the story is. I think you all know what the CIA is, right? The American secret investigative body, whatever you want to call it. Some people don't like it, some people like it. But you've all seen movies like James Bond movies or Tom Hanks movies, I'm sure. Well, one of the key training things that they do with these secret agents is they teach them scenario planning. And they teach them a very simple scenario planning, that when you're getting into trouble or whatever you're doing, you always think in 2 or at the most 3 scenarios. And then when trouble hits, none of those are going to work. But because you've been thinking in scenarios, you will immediately find reflexively the right thing to do. And the important point that this is teaching you is that the scenario, if you were working in one path, is not going to be the one that is going to work. The idea of a plan that follows 1, 2, 3, 4 is not going to work in the real world. You can plan. But what these agents do that you've watched in the movies when they all of a sudden do something and it works is that they've been thinking in 2 or 3 scenarios simultaneously, so that immediately they turn right or left or forward or back because their brain was working in scenario planning. Their brain was working in multiple tracks. So what this assignment is trying to get you to do when we're talking about scenario planning is to get you to be thinking in multiple tracks, not to be thinking in a rigorous track. For any of you who have children, you know that you cannot figure out what your child is going to do 5 minutes from now, but you can be scenario planning. And so you can be like the agent in the movie and who suddenly knows whether instinctively to move right or left, because you are under this normal curve that is totally unpredictable and you can be anywhere in that. There's a lesson here, folks, in these spy movies that connects directly to community development. I hope that's helpful and not more confusing.
I think it is helpful, and just to tie it back to Kristen's question, that's what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to lay out at least 2 clear scenarios of once you start this, once growth starts to happen, you can't suddenly put it on pause and think. So you need to always be ready. And that's why we're saying have at least 2. You can do 3. I mean, 3, as Daniel said, probably will work even better. But 2 is all you're required to do for this assignment. Because at no point, if you are operating with 2 real scenarios, and maybe they're 2 scenarios for the same strategy as Kristen was asking about, or maybe they're 2 different scenarios and each one has its own strategy. That's up to you to decide. But what you will get from that is that you will always have a choice.
Yeah.
You will never feel like at this point, the only next step is the next step in your plan, because taking that time to slow down and try to pick, is this step, or should I use the one from my alternate scenario, a better step? You might find a third because you're going to be getting new evidence. So thank you, everybody. We really, I'm really looking forward to looking at your assignments that come in this Sunday. This assignment I know is conceptually can be rather burdensome, but it's always, from our perspective as a teaching faculty, one of the absolute funnest for us to review and grade, because we really get to see where you envision your work going in the long run. So let us know if you have questions. And otherwise, we will look forward to seeing those come in Sunday evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.